Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Baptiste. I work as a portfolio GP and I have been asked to speak to you about creating a portfolio career. I will be talking through a short presentation in which I'll talk briefly about my portfolio career and give you some food for thought in terms of thinking about your own. Of course, because this is recorded, I will not be available for questions. However, please feel free to ask the event organisers and they can get in contact with me and pass on any questions that you may have. Of course, this video is on my YouTube channel and I have lots of useful information to support you on your medical career journey. So if you are interested, then be sure to have a look around my YouTube channel and be sure to subscribe. Okay, so let's start the presentation. So I'm going to talk briefly about myself. So I always wanted to be a doctor. It was a lifelong dream, as you can see here. I got accepted into UCL Medical School and I then completed my training, undertook a BSc in Speech Science and Communication. And it was a massive achievement for me. And it was, like I said, a lifelong dream and I accomplished something. I started working as a junior doctor. And then I decided to take a year out of training because there were a few things I saw during my training that I wasn't completely happy with. I wasn't completely aware of, even as a medical student and spending a lot of time on the wards and with the doctors. I think it's very different to being a medical student versus being a doctor. So I felt very uncertain about my future. I wasn't sure if I wanted to carry on being a doctor. I applied for other non-medical roles. I was offered a job at a medical communications company, which I didn't accept. I just didn't feel it was right for me. So I kind of, looked around and thought, is this medicine for me? Is it not? And I went to a few networking events and I went to a medical event, and it was through that event that I realized actually I still want to be a doctor. And then the next step was, if you still want to be a doctor, then how can you go about doing that in essentially a system that I wasn't really happy to work in? So I thought about general practice, and that was something that I thought would enable me to complete my training and enable me to be the doctor that I had envisioned. So I completed my GP training. It was 3 years. And it was during my time out of training, my FY3, that I developed my portfolio career. I was interested in a number of different things like writing, and I then did a case report and I wrote loads of articles for the BMJ, and these things really helped me develop and the start of my portfolio career essentially. So my career at the moment, I work as a remote GP, I work as a salaried remote GP, and I also work as a locum, and it's all in the NHS. I may consider going back to doing some face-to-face, even if it's in a locum capacity, but at the moment I currently work remotely. I'm also a medical educator, so I'm a GP tutor, which means that I'll teach medical students as part of my role as a GP. I mean, this is at my previous practice, but I'm still teaching the medical students there. And I have recently become a senior clinical lecturer at the College of Medicine and Dentistry. And through my YouTube channel, I do a lot of educating about medical careers, in particular general practice, portfolio careers. And there are lots of videos about medical school as well. Last year, I completed a leadership course, and then I also completed a course at UCL. Now I'm able to become a supervisor in various capacities. And off the back of that, now I'm able to complete, I guess, the part two of that, which is a short course, and I have to do an assignment, and then potentially I could go in and complete a master's. So, I mean, the end goal is to complete a master's, but we will see how that goes. So, okay, going on to writing, I mentioned I like writing. So I have a lot of publications in various different areas, mostly medical, through a platform that I have created called Med School Extra, well, co-founded, I would say, which again is aligned with supporting you guys, medical students, on your careers and teaching you things that are not necessarily taught formally in the medical school curriculum. There'll be a publication for that, mainly for the team, the medical students and the doctors on the team. In terms of another publication, I'm actually working on a book with a publishing company. That'll be interesting. And I also write for GP Online. And in the future, I'd love to become an editor in some capacity, some shape or form. So I've grayed that out slightly because I'm not an editor yet, but it's something that I would really like to do. In terms of other aspects to my career, so like I mentioned, I founded Med School Extra, now co-founded. I have a co-founder and I have a team now who are really amazing, and we're going to launch at the end of this month. So a few days actually after this talk will go live, we'll be launching. So if you don't know about Med School Extra, then you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we have a YouTube channel as well where we'll put our talks, our webinars. So like I said, if you don't know about Med School Extra, then check it out. And a speaker, so I'm often asked to speak about a variety of different topics. I've delivered a number of talks over the years. I have spoken about portfolio careers at the BMJ Live Careers Fair, and that was quite popular. And of course, I'm talking about portfolio careers today. I'm also champion for diversity. For many of you who don't know me, I did found a company called Dream Smart Tutors, and one of our main aims was to increase diversity at medical school. And that's something that's still quite close to my heart. So let's talk about what a portfolio career is. So portfolio careers are usually built around a collection of skills and interests. And this is, I guess, the main thing you need to take away. And just a little additional notice about career self-management. I really wanted to be a doctor for a lot of reasons, but one of those reasons was to have that career autonomy and to have my own schedule and not to be told essentially what to do in every single area of my professional life. So with a portfolio career, you have multiple jobs. You don't have one job, not just one employer if you are employed. And as it says here, multiple jobs and employers within one or more professions. So as you probably gathered, my portfolio career has the foundation, which is medicine or general practice. So why is this relevant? Well, the pressures of a medical career. So we know that medicine is not easy at all. You have demanding training schemes. And when you go to self-specialize, it's not easy in any path, any point on the path. And it might help readdress the balance and personal satisfaction by acquiring more skills, new challenges, which many of us enjoy, and reducing the risk of burnout and unhappiness. And so you might think that the workforce are less likely to take sick leave or leave the profession, plus be more productive and have more skills. So examples, so you can have an anchored and satellite. So you have one primary career, for example, general practice, and you freelance. And I would say it's probably what I do in a way. Like I said, my foundation is general practice or medicine. And then all my other careers are essentially tied into that. And some of them are freelancing and some of them are employed. Seasonal, so you have different forms throughout the year as a freelancer or self-employed. And again, I suppose it's something as to what I do. So I'm also a medical school examiner, which I didn't mention earlier in the medical educator section, but this is seasonal, so you don't have exams that you need I guess outside or external examiners throughout all the time. So usually it will be certain points in the academic year that they will call upon doctors to examine. So that will be one thing that I would say is seasonal. And part-time is so basically a combination of part-time employed roles. And again, this is again probably what I do as well. So I work part-time as a GP, work part-time as a clinical lecturer, and I guess those are my two main part-time jobs at the moment. And then locuming is also part-time, so everything is part-time. Now I'm going to talk about how to launch your career. And just some things to think about, really. So moonlighting. So if you wanted to start a portfolio career, you wanted to start something additional, and obviously your main thing, which maybe being a medical student obviously takes up most of your time, then maybe you could start your project or something that you wanted to invest more time in the evenings and weekends. It will be hard, but it's definitely doable. And this is how I managed to maintain my portfolio career when I was training as a GP, because I was full-time as a GP trainee. Adjusting, so you can adjust your hours and schedules to essentially make room for your other career or other interests. Could you go part-time? Like I said, I was a full-time GP trainee, but I could have easily dropped down to having part-time hours. Could you take some time out of training? Again, I said my portfolio career was essentially started when I was at FY3. I took a year after completing the foundation program. Jumping, so you can completely leave your current situation or employment altogether. Some people might find that this is a bit risky, but it depends on what you do and what you jump into. So what do I need to think about? Well, in terms of pros and cons, like I said, career autonomy is the biggest pro for me, one of the biggest pros for me. Of course, work-life balance. You can balance your work and your interests and pleasures a bit better. And you can acquire multiple skills simultaneously, which is also something that I enjoy. And of course, there are financial capabilities. In terms of cons, you might think that it might be overwhelming or difficult to balance, and you have too many commitments, which might lead to burnout. There might be a high level of risk or uncertainty, depending on obviously what you choose to do. And some people might struggle with a lack of routine or structure and a lack of financial security or loss. But it does depend on what you do. So a few questions just to wrap up really would be, what do you want out of your life? Where do you see yourself in the future? You have to obviously think about the here and now, but obviously plan 5, 10 years. Where do you see yourself? And what type of career do you want? And it's good to think about these things now. Who or what do you need to make it happen? Now, sometimes people might think about a mentor. It doesn't have to be formal mentoring. It could just be someone, could be a lecturer. It could be someone that you admire and someone who is doing what you may want to do. And it may just be a phone call here and there. It may be an email, and maybe the odd coffee. So, when I used to think of mentoring, I used to think it used to be really formal, but actually that's not the case. And, do you want to have a gradual, sudden transition? I think for me, I had more of a gradual transition. I wanted to stay in medicine. I didn't know how I could have a portfolio career. And like I said, it came more naturally. It's not something I really set out to do. It just was something that happened over time. And it was me just making sure that I did not lose my passions and interests, which is something that had happened to me in medical school. I wanted to, and I made that commitment to myself to keep my passions and keep my interests and future careers alive. So just wanted to finalize the talk in terms of just saying a few things that I've learned, 5 things to be specific. Number one, you need to know who you are. You need to follow your mind. There will be many people who might say to you, this is not going to work. What are you doing? But you need to make sure that you're strong enough to follow your vision and follow your dreams. Upskilling is always important. It's something that after medical school, you might be like, oh, I've had so many exams, I want a break, and that's fine. But, always try and think about where you can upskill. And networking is so important. You might get a mentor from networking. You're developing connections. So always try and network where you can. I networked in teaching sessions with the speakers. So that might be something to think about where appropriate. And number 2, take risks. You can't always be safe. You always have to maybe try and do something and step out of your comfort zone. And know your and test the waters. So sometimes you can try something out, you don't, again, it goes along with taking risks. You can try something, you can dip your toe into the water and see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. It's one of those things. And know your worth. I think sometimes, with the pressures of outside, especially in medical school as well, you might compare yourself to others, which is not something that I obviously wouldn't recommend. I personally tried not to do it because it just made me feel really low. So I just focused on myself, and just know that you're amazing. And like I said, just know your worth and try and keep talking to yourself positively every single day. And number 5 is that your future is, yours, and it's limitless, and you are in charge of your future. You are in charge of your destiny, to an extent. So you can create your path. And that's something I would say. There are loads of opportunities out there, and don't put any limits on yourself. So that's the end of the talk. I hope that you found it useful. There should be a slide actually about questions. Yes. So if you do have any questions, like I said, please contact the organizers.